Hello everybody, I'm Junia and this is Uncommon Sense. Thank you for joining us. My guest, Gloria Dana Brooks, is President and CEO of Arbor Hospice in Ann Arbor. Arbor Hospice helps more than 275 patients and their families with terminal illness each day. In 2012, she was named Educator of the Year by the Michigan Hospice, a palliative care organization. She has a master's in public administration from Oakland University and a Bachelor of Science in Art Therapy from the University of Evansville. So welcome, Gloria.
Thank you.
So what does a hospice do? What is a hospice?
A hospice at its core is really there to support patients and families while they're experiencing the end-of-life journey. And it is such a privilege for a hospice to be invited in to wherever the patient calls home to supply that support through emotional and medical and spiritual care. It really is an opportunity to make sure that the patient and the family get all the support that they need at a pretty difficult time.
When you say emotional and so forth, how do you work that aspect of it so they do get the support they would like?
Well, we've all experienced the death of a loved one, and so you can remember how confusing it is. It is a scary time, just wondering what's going to happen with the disease or the illness. What are the financial things I need to figure out? What are the funeral plans, the burial plans, depending on the different ethnicity or just all kinds of different things that we need to plan on. So the social worker that would be involved with the team would be there to help walk through all those different things. There may be, in particular families, estrangements that have happened over the years. Sometimes a patient will want to reconnect with somebody that they haven't had a chance to in a while. Oftentimes, especially with today's families, there's family members all over the country, and so it's helping people to reconnect. It may be figuring out, how do we tell the grandkids about what's happening with grandpa, and figuring out at different age-appropriate times for children. How do we do that? And so families will often need some assistance, and that's what hospice is there to do.
Well, how does one get into hospice or apply for it? Or
well, it's interesting now. Back, hospice has been around in the United States since the mid-'70s. So from a healthcare perspective, it's a relatively new field, and it's certainly gaining a lot more acceptance. The whole field of geriatrics and gerontology now, I would say, in the last few decades. So I think for most of us, getting into hospice, we kind of fell into it. Arbor Hospice was founded in 1984 by a nurse back in Ann Arbor who just had that passion from a volunteer perspective, and she just decided Ann Arbor needed this, and she was going to start one. And I think across the state of Michigan, hospices sprung up from that volunteer grassroots nonprofit movement like that. And so now that it's much more formalized, you see people going into practices like that. Madonna University in Livonia, Michigan actually has a program where you can go and study hospice and get a certificate in hospice studies. So it's becoming much more accepted. I think for folks who really want to study aging and look at that sort of career path, we see many more people deciding from a nursing practice and a social work practice, deciding to go into that field at the beginning of their career instead of doing it at the end of their career.
so am I understanding, or I'm putting words in your mouth, that a doctor would tell a patient and a family that you're on your way to die, in essence, and then they have the choice of staying home or applying or signing you up?
For hospice?
How does that, just what are the steps
How that
there?
process works? Well, it's interesting. When a patient disease progresses to the point that it is terminal, their physician or their primary care physician or a specialist, let's say they have a cancer, so they're working with an oncologist, they will start to have that conversation with them that curative treatments are not being as effective. And you're getting to the point from a palliative or comfort perspective that we really should be focusing on quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
The curative treatments are not helping anymore. And sometimes those curative treatments will actually have a detrimental impact on your quality of life. Mm-hmm. And you'll hear people say that. Boy, the chemo treatments are actually making a negative impact. They're actually making me sicker. And so you'll see people that, we talk about the terrible choice. Well, what if I give that up?
Mm-hmm.
Am I giving up? And so we talk about palliative care and hospice care. It's not about giving up. It's not about dying. It's actually about living every day to the fullest. And so for folks who choose hospice and having that conversation with their physician, it really is about saying, I'm going to choose quality of life. I want to do everything that I want to do every day. And I'm going to have the team, the hospice team, come to me instead of me having to go to the hospital for treatments. I'm going to forego all of that because it's not helping my quality of life. Mm-hmm. I'm beyond, the disease is progressing beyond cure. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm just going to focus on comfort care, manage the pain, manage the symptoms, and live each day that I can to the fullest. That really is the switch from a philosophical perspective. And that's really when the doctor will have that conversation. Now, sometimes when a doctor doesn't have it, the family might initiate the conversation, or the patient might say, enough. I'm tired of going in and out of the hospital. It's not helping me. I wanna go on hospice.
So can a patient apply to hospice, or does a social worker you mentioned have to refer?
No, a patient can call up any hospice and say, you know what, I want to find out how I sign on to services, or a family member can inquire about how a patient could become admitted. So a physician has to get involved at some point, but a patient or a family member themselves can call. So
And
that's
so
important.
usually once they're in hospital, is that for a year? I mean, I know it's or longer or shorter. I mean, I guess there's variables, but
It is. It's different for every patient. The important piece is that it is customized for every patient. It really is meant from we talk about Medicare's perspective, because most patients actually, more than I think 80% of hospice participants are over age 80. So most folks are elderly. You would expect that. And so the average number of days that a patient is on across the nation is about 2 months. So most people are on service for 2 months. The greatest challenge, I think, that we in the hospice community face is that the Medicare hospice benefit, which is something that anybody over age 65 is eligible for if they've received Medicare benefits, is a 6-month benefit. So most people are only getting 2 months of that benefit. And why is that? It's because people are not accessing it soon enough. And this is the great challenge. It's why I so appreciate a chance to chat with your viewers today, because we hear the word hospice and people say, oh, I don't want hospice. That means I'm dying, and I'm dying tomorrow. So the longer I can stay away from hospice, it means I'm not dying. And then we have this self-fulfilling prophecy, because the longer I stay away from it, then I don't get all these great services for myself and my family until the very, very end. And then I come in and I'm only on a few days, and then I die. And so then I got what I said I was going to get. I go to hospice and I die right away.
Right.
Instead of enjoying these services for the whole family, customized for what I need, that comes to me. I don't have to go to it. All the whole
Right.
team comes to me wherever I
Daily?
call home. Not daily, really however I need it.
Okay.
Services are available to the family really based on the acuity. So
Okay.
some patients need it more than others, but it really is based on how the illness progresses. So most folks will need more services toward those final days.
Yes.
They will need more services as they are signed on to service because they have to get services set up, get assessed and things like that.
Yes,
So it really varies.
It does vary. I would see that as a sense of service to work for hospice, but
Yeah.
I also could see myself getting very attached
Yeah.
to each or several of the patients.
Yeah.
How do you train your staff, or what can one? How does that work?
It is a lot of our staff will call it a calling, and we hear that a lot from our family members that they just are so grateful to our staff who come to their homes and take care of the patients. We really talk with our staff about maintaining boundaries because we want them to be caring. They have to be. I think anybody who gets into this line of work is. But they also have to make sure they're taking care of themselves so they don't get burned out.
How do they take care of themselves?
It is making sure that they're taking time off as they need to. We will do monthly at staff meetings. We'll do our own little memorial services to recognize the patients that they've lost. I mean, we do that with families.
Yes.
Annually, so the families can come and recognize them. But for the staff, we really want to make sure on a monthly basis that we're doing that. And then we'll do other things throughout the year with our staff just to make sure that they're doing that replenishing themselves. They give so much of themselves out. We need to make sure they're replenishing that back in. So it is a lot of self-care.
I like the idea that people are around the dying person, but once the person dies, do you have a sense of a soul or energy change in the room?
We hear that a lot, both from the family members and staff. And it really depends on, I think, the patient, the family, the belief and the value system for all the folks involved. I have a pretty strong faith background, and so that's my value, my perception. And I think hospice is important from a healthcare perspective. It's the only healthcare model that recognizes the spiritual care component. And it also is not and it's very important, it's not a religious component. We meet the patient wherever they are. So that, I think that's unique. Dying is there's a spiritual component to it. And so sometimes the pain and symptom management, there is a spiritual pain that has to be addressed. And so some patients may have their own imam, they might have their own priest or their own rabbi. Some have none, and that's the way they want it, that's fine. There's other ways for us to address that pain with them. But from a death and dying perspective, that spiritual issue usually needs to be addressed in some manner.
What in your background makes this kind of work a good fit for you?
It is fascinating. I've spent my career now 26 years all in the nonprofit sector, and the first 12 was not at all related to death and dying. It was actually involved with abuse prevention, working with women and children in abuse situations. And so I really didn't get the connection, the social service side of it, until I started working in hospice. And there's a lot of overlap, which people wouldn't connect. And when people will say to me now how difficult it must be to work in hospice, I can truthfully say no. The first half of my career was much more difficult than this. This is such a gift to be invited into people's homes and help take care of them at the end of life. truly is
Has it changed how you
wonderful.
lead your own life?
It is a great reminder every day to appreciate every day, because you never know what day is going to be your last day. And I think some of the challenges we've had in the country with the mass shootings, where we have unexpected death.
Mm-hmm.
I am very used to death that is more drawn out. In hospice, we tend to, not that we know when it's going to happen, but it's more of a planned activity. And I think the community impact shootings have been really rough. And that's the reminder, I think, to myself at least, that we never know, and you really need to appreciate every day. And so
Yeah. Something
that's the
like
impact.
40,000 people are killed every year in car wrecks. And yet we go out in our cars. I mean, just to say that's dead. Then they're the ones that were injured.
Yeah.
So you can't. I don't think you can get overly worried about things.
No, you can't. You need to appreciate it. And I will often say, when I'm doing new staff orientation at Arbor Hospice, one of the most significant hospice, what ties me to hospice, there are two events. Neither one involved hospice. I wish they would have involved hospice. The death of my grandmother 20 some odd years ago, who would have wanted to have had the opportunity to say goodbye, but she was one of those folks who had a heart attack while driving. And so didn't have that chance, but was such a gregarious person. She would have wanted to have the experience.
She was important to you.
Oh, yeah.
What did
very,
she
very
teach
important.
you?
I'm Italian. She taught me to cook. So very, very important for those Italian viewers. They will know that the Italian grandmother, very, very important in the family, in the Italian family. So very key. The other hospice-related piece, which ended up not being a hospice experience, was the death last year of my mother-in-law, who we weren't able to get into hospice, which is quite ironic given what I do every day, who was hospitalized and declined so quickly we weren't able to discharge her out of the hospital and bring her to Arbor Hospice in time. And so I'm sure we have viewers who have had that experience as well. And so, as you might guess, being in my position, I'm very much used to thinking I have a little bit of control and plan things. So this was a great learning opportunity from my mother-in-law that I absolutely have no control, and it was what it was. And so the folks at the hospital provided a great environment for her, and it was an experience that I'm sure a lot of people experience every day, and a reminder of hospice is one way to experience that final journey, but it doesn't always happen in that optimal way. And so
what do you need to have by way of talent, or what do you need to learn to manage an organization like this?
Wow, that's a great question. It is a little like air traffic control sometimes. I think we have a lot of moving parts. I think a great sense of patience, which I learn every day because I am not the most patient person. I think making sure that you have an eye on what's going to be happening in the next 3 to 5 years, yet the ability to be focused on the details now, and making sure that we're focused on quality and clinical excellence, I think is just so important. We want to make sure that we only get one time to do it right in our line of work. So we have to make sure that patients and families get the best experience they can from our staff, and everybody has to have a customized experience. That's tough to be able to do that. So I think having a sense of patience and a sense of community with my staff, we have more than 250 staff and more than 300 volunteers caring for this group of patients in 7 counties. It's a lot to have a handle in, but a very group of dedicated people, and so I think a sense of passion is required, and just a sense of, I just love what I do and I love the people that I work with, so that helps a lot.
You know, years ago at Matrix, we had a man who had an autoimmune disease, and the doctor said, "We can't help you." And he checked himself into a hotel and he played funny movies. And he laughed his way well, so to speak. And in any case, what is the role of laughter at this time of life?
Attitude is everything. And so laughter, humor, just that positive thinking, very important. We've seen patients, we profiled a patient not too long ago who, one of the things he did to stay positive and focused, he built bird houses out of popsicle sticks. He made these beautiful, just beautiful sculptures out of things. That was his thing to do to stay focused. So yeah, any of those sorts of things that give somebody purpose, and it's the power of positive thinking. We've heard that cliche a million times. It's so true. And so yes, laughter, any of those sorts of things that help somebody connect to another person, connect to themselves, and not let whatever the disease is, and name it. It doesn't have to be cancer. Most people so associate hospice with cancer because in the beginning of this
In your
industry,
observation, can a person decide when they die?
you know, they could. We certainly see folks who do that, who get to a birthday or get to the holiday and that's it, or wait until the son gets there or the daughter gets there. I have seen that myself. So I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised that happens sometimes. Yeah.
That's really interesting because that's the sense of will.
I was just going to say, it's that sense of will, when I want, what control do I have? Yeah.
And what choice do I wish
What
to
choice
make?
do I have? And when I choose to give up. That power of positive thinking kind of turned the other way. So when I am done and I just kind of let go, it's the opposite.
When you often hear about people being forgiven, and then they can die. The person they've been estranged from or had an issue with comes and says, "Didn't get along, but I forgive you. I accept it." And
Very
then that
powerful.
person dies. Are they waiting for that forgiveness or the contact, or is there such a thing as then choosing to say, "Okay, I'm even, so to speak. I have balance now"?
It is, I think it is just the emotional release. There's a lot of books out there about the power of forgiveness, and there's a lot of discussion on that in the hospice and palliative care world. We are witnesses to that a lot, especially our social work and spiritual care staff, but any of our colleagues. So powerful to be able to say those words from the family member to the patient. That is a real gift at any point in a relationship, but certainly at the end of life. Again, you only get one chance to do that. And
Right.
so you don't want to miss your opportunity. And, I would say to folks, you don't know when you're going to have that opportunity, so you don't want to miss it. And it's a real gift that
Do you
we
have
get
to
to
be
witness
spiritual
it.
yourself to work on the spiritual side of hospice?
I think I think it is there. I think you have it in you. I think it develops. I don't know that that you could do it without it. I guess I see it with certainly the colleagues that I work with every day. It's there in some capacity. So there's
I
special
always thought
people.
we all influence each other anyway.
Yeah. Oh,
so
I
you
think
might
so.
as well put something good in.
Oh yeah, and it is amazing to watch. They're a great group.
It is a great group.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Well, thank you, my
Thank
friend.
you. Oh, thank you.
So, well, we have learned quite a bit. And that is, like any organization, it takes management. And what Gloria was, I think, saying is that attitude is all. Whether you're dying, whether you're the patient, the family, the staff, the administrator, attitude is all. A positive attitude, choice, keep relationships clean. If they have any stick in them, clean them up, forgive them. It's just really important. You have no idea, when you're going to die, when you're going to live. Make every day kind of worth it. When you're an administrator, you always have to be mindful of the staff and where they are and embrace them, and yet be also thinking down the road quite a bit. There's a lot of boundaries you talked about, but this being with a person and yet being able to reserve yourself. And they do that by having monthly ceremonies for people who have died. We have learned a lot. Make every day count. Please go and have good relations. Put a little good into the world. Smile. And remember, go out and do something kind for someone you know and someone you don't know, and do it every single day. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.
To contact Junia, send her an email at info@juniadone.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadone.com. Thanks for joining us. See you next time for Uncommon Sense with Junia Done.